Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'll be doing my usual thoughts for yesterday's Prime Minister's questions, the penultimate one before the summer recess. In this one I'm going to cover a few questions asked by different MPs of different parties, because my goodness, there was plenty to ask about this week. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So first things first, in terms of Keir Starmer's main line of inquiry, he had a lot of options. He could have attacked Johnson for his failing culture war, which I discussed yesterday, for which I need to make an addendum. I said that the planned Downing Street reception for the England squad was cancelled by the government, whose side had wanted to focus on their levelling up agenda. I said at the time it was actually much more likely it was because they didn't want to face a lot of awkward questions. Well, it turns out that this was another Downing Street lie. They didn't cancel the event at all. The England players did. They refused to accept the invitation of the Grand Wizard, the Prime Minister. If I were there, and I know maybe why they didn't, they'd have just thought, well, Boris Johnson would have just used the photo opportunity, but it would have given them the chance to ask him an awful lot of awkward questions. But anyway, it is what it is. Starmer could also have taken a swipe at the serious shortages putting our food security in jeopardy. You know, get some Brexit in there. Even the Mail are linking Brexit to impending disaster now. The pro-Brexit Mail. Might have to discuss that in more detail later. He could have attacked the removal of face masks from the COVID guidance, something Wales, Scotland and London are not insane enough to do. In fact, wherever there is an elected administration anywhere in Britain, it seems to me that they are urging or requiring people to continue to use face masks, depending on whether they've got the power to insist on it or just advise it. But Starmer chose to hammer Johnson on his refusal to condemn people for booing the England team for taking the knee, something Johnson denied. But he can't produce any evidence that he did condemn them. Where's the recording then? I mean, you're recorded giving interviews all the time. Where's the recording of you? Where's your tweet condemning them? Because there were plenty of reports published at the time indicating that Boris Johnson was asked if he would condemn the people booing the England team, and he refused to do so. Now, I won't go on too much about this because I think I said what I needed to say yesterday, but Johnson was completely lost on this one. Given that Starmer was even able to quote a sitting Conservative MP attacking the party position on this, you can guess it was an uncomfortable experience for Boris Johnson. And it was uncomfortable. I think from memory, I can only really remember two PMQs with Keir Starmer where I've thought, oh, that didn't go well. When he didn't really land any serious blows. You know, for anyone watching. But that doesn't mean Johnson suffers when he gets done over on an almost weekly basis. Because if the exposure of his failings doesn't land him in trouble with his support base, because that's what matters, remember, not the general public, certainly not the people watching PMQs, it's his specific support base. He can just shrug it off. He doesn't need the votes of people who are appalled at what he's done. He's not getting them anyway. But there have been times when he has been really rattled. And this wasn't just one of those times. It may well have been the clearest winner of such times. This was an opening salvo in PMQs that he knows reflects poorly on him amongst those whose votes he needs. And Ian Blackford also took a similar line for the SNP. Now, I've said this before. You know, when both Starmer and Blackford, who have very different aims in Parliament and in PMQs, when they take the same line of attack against Johnson, you can be sure that it is one that cuts right through his armour. Blackford said that it was shameful that Johnson only called out the racism of some fans this weekend. Though if I might add, I would prefer it if these people were never referred to as fans nor supporters. Thugs or hooligans, I think, is more accurate and more appropriate. Blackford also brought up one of Johnson's most famous racist remarks, which I don't need to repeat here. Johnson replied by saying, well, the comment was taken out of context. Which is what everyone says, don't they, when they're having to face up to the consequences of what they have said and provably said. In Boris Johnson's case, he's written it down. We can see it. And yes, it is possible to take a phrase that someone says out of context and pretend it had a different meaning. This is done all the time. It's a well-known fiddle. But what we're talking about here is a racial slur, the use of a racial slur. How can you ever take that out of context? How can someone use a racial slur and if you watch the whole thing or read the entire article, oh, actually, no, that's fine using it in that context. No. But Blackford used his second question to ask if the Prime Minister still thinks racism is not a systemic problem in the UK, to which Johnson said that racism is still a problem. Oh, hang on a minute. He prevented the publication of a whole raft of reports into racism in the UK when he became Prime Minister. There were a whole load due for publication, and he said, no, we're not going to publish those. We need a bigger investigation. So I'm going to commission this whole wide-ranging investigation, inquiry into racism. And he then commissioned his own, got his team to rewrite it. So he already set the guidelines for the report authors and then still rewrote it with his own people. And it concluded there was actually no racism in the UK. In fact, apparently we are a shining beacon of tolerance to the world. Right then. He got people to write that. So how come he now gets to say that racism is a problem in the UK when he spent a lot of our taxes to get someone to write that it's not? I really wish more people would just see Boris Johnson for what he is. He says one thing to a group of people at a particular time when it's politically expedient. And then he will say the complete opposite thing when it suits him. There's never any thought about his position. There's never any thinking even 5 minutes into the future. He just says whatever he thinks people want him to say, even if it means telling a lie that is provably false. And this is evident to those of us following him now quite closely, but close friends and colleagues have talked about this trait for years, that you will just go in to pick a bone with him and he will just say whatever you want to hear and you'll come away from it going, he's done it to me again. But there were other important topics brought up by various MPs as well. Peter Kyle of Labour wanted Johnson to commit to vaccinating teenagers before the schools open up again. I mean, they haven't quite closed yet, but when they open up again late summer, needless to say, Johnson avoided all responsibility. That said, it's up to this other group. If there were any experts advising, then they would have already advised the vaccination of children. They only advise prioritising the more vulnerable first. No experts have advised not vaccinating children at all. Hugh Williams of Plaid Cymru talked about the madness of our drop in all pandemic measures next week. He pointed out that Wales is applying a more cautious approach than England. And actually, he got Boris Johnson to say that he approves of a cautious approach. What? He's not just throwing caution to the wind in a few days. He's burying it in a deep hole and pouring concrete on top. John Nicholson of the SNP attacked the Conservatives on voting to cut international aid, something the government said they would not do. In fact, they said they were proud of their commitments to the 0.7% of GDP. Even Theresa May savaged the government over this in her speech before the vote. Johnson said, we should be proud of our spending on international aid. We are. That's why we want it to continue. I don't understand how people just don't see we need to get rid of this guy. He's just defended getting rid of something that he also says we should be proud of. You should be really proud of this thing, so we need to get rid of it. In what other context could you possibly say that? Oh, you must be so proud of your child. You'd better beat them up now. Oh, you did really well in that test. You must be so proud. You'd better drop the marks by 30%. It's insane. I even had to laugh when a Conservative backbencher called on the Conservative Prime Minister to back a summer reading challenge for children, which said Prime Minister heartily endorsed. Nice, you might think. What's wrong with that? Nothing at all. Only these same Conservatives have been closing libraries all over the country for the past decade. Where are children supposed to get these books to read if they're poor then? I mean, at this point, when a Tory backbencher asks a question that highlights just how appalling the Tories are, I don't even know where we go from here. Get rid of them. Get rid of them. Of course, we can't actually get rid of them for a few years, but we can at least start with Boris Johnson. He's sailing quite close to the wind now. This was a bad PMQs for him. What we need is a strong campaign from Labour this summer, I feel, and then into the conference season. What people need right now, I don't think they need much more persuading that the Conservatives are absolutely appalling, that Boris Johnson's government is appalling. What they need, like at the moment, the problem is for too many of the public, it's just like, yes, we know it's crap, But what's the alternative? Labour need to give them the alternative. They've now got to do that. If they can do that, it's not plain sailing, of course it's not, but that will start the journey, you know, and hopefully then autumn will bring some consequences for Johnson's reckless cruelty. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.